All right, we made it. This is our first ever episode on our Embodied Union podcast.
Welcome.
And we're in Bali.
Welcome. Yeah.
Feels good to do it here.
Feels amazing. And it feels like it's a long time coming.
Yes, I feel like there's so many conversations that we have behind closed doors all the time that, we get to now put out to the world.
Yeah.
Feels good.
And I think, this conversation that we've been brewing on is like, how do we start? Like, what do we do with the first episode? And it could be anything, we could go straight to anal, or it could just be
plugs,
whatever it is. But I think the big one is just relationship is a skill.
Relationship is a skill. And when you don't recognize that it's a skill, I feel like that is when couples run into trouble, because there's a belief that they should just be getting it right, or their partner should just be getting it right. And if it's not working out, then maybe it's not a match. Maybe you're not it.
Yeah, it's easy.
Maybe it's the dynamic.
It's easy to blame the other, or to sit back and just have it not turn out as well. I think that, in this day and age, we're seeing people get together and break up as fast as anything with hookup culture and dating culture. And, I'm a pretty big fan of relationship. And I think that it's just like knowing that is in a way similar to a business. That relationship is a skill. You bring your agreements in, you bring everything that you've learned from every single relationship into the next.
And there's lots of pieces around what do you actually want it to look like? Because I think most people, not just relationship but life, it's kind of you're on autopilot and hoping for the best. And it's like with relationship, we're just hoping for the best. But if you actually can look at it as it being a skill you can learn, you can actually be intentional to create it to be the best.
And it gets to be really good. It gets to be thriving. It's not an accident that your relationship is thriving. It's otherwise, relationship can look like it's thriving when it's in this honeymoon period, this 0 to 2 years or 9 months or 6 months for some people. But it's once that energy wears off, it's then what? That's when you actually have to rely on the skills of each of the people in the relationship to make this work.
I really feel like that's where couples fall down. And I know it's where I've fallen down. For me, it actually was only ever really a month of honeymoon energy, new relationship energy. And once that does fade away, and I think the thing to know is that it will always fade away. Even the best relationship, the honeymoon energy is based on novelty.
It is.
Novelty will wear off. You will become familiar. So once that exciting energy wanes, then you are left with, what's the skill of the actual dynamic? And often it's subpar because no one is teaching how to do relationship outside of the honeymoon. The honeymoon is the passion. So when you think about what we see in movies and music, it's lots of passion, it's big energy. So porn, it's all very highly stimulating. And if that's our education on what relationship should be like if it's going well, then forever, and then honeymoon dies and it's I guess we're fucked.
Yeah, I guess this is not the relationship for me. I guess it's not working out. Once the mask falls off or the makeup starts to crack, it's almost there you are. There's the real version of you. And it's do I like that version, or do I like that human underneath?
It's and that's the thing. I don't believe people get into a relationship and they choose to put a mask on. It's just in the beginning, because the honeymoon energy, there's so much. It's like a dopamine cocktail. Your actual relationship patterns and wounding, it's offline because the dopamine is so intense. But once that wears off, then what actually is going on for us, our patterns, our conditioning, our trauma, whatever it is, that then bubbles up to the surface. And it's now I feel like I'm meeting, who's this? Dream partner becomes nightmare partner. We've got to reassess. But I think if couples understood that that's actually a normal part of the dynamic, to have the honeymoon wear off and to move into the conflict phase, and to go through that and learn the skills to go through the conflict phase, what's on the other side is that deep, authentic love, which is actually way better than the honeymoon. I don't know how many couples actually make it through the conflict phase to really land there.
Yeah, I think what happens often is, and we try and teach this with our couples that we work with, is like conflict is around clarity. So it's
Creates
like
clarity.
It does. So it's like, can we not go into this conflict phase? And I think couples typically, they go into the conflict phase and create damage.
Yes.
And that damage from not being skilled enough causes the inability to repair. So the relationship goes beyond the ability to repair because there is so much hurt, so much damage, that then the relationship is almost unable to be put back together and go into that third phase of relationship, that re-enchantment, So it's like, this is why it's so important that I believe so important that couples learn that relating is a skill and it can be taught. Just because you've never been modeled a good relationship, just because you've had a string of bad relationships, doesn't mean that it can't be better, and you can be better even if you're not in a relationship. I think I work with men exclusively, so it's like guys are sometimes like, oh, I wish I was in a relationship. Like, brother, this is the perfect time for you to be actually like upskilling yourself around self-regulation, self-care, self-revealing as a skill.
This is prep time. Like what I say, I had a woman ask me recently, she's like, well, if you're single and like you're not being triggered, then how do you work on your stuff? It's like, it's still the time to prep. It's still the time to get resourced and learn the skills, knowing that no matter how much self-development you do, when you get in that relationship, it's going to bring up all your shit because you actually heal in relationship. You need someone to push up against. And if you're bringing those skills with you, then I believe the biggest healing we can go through is in relationship.
And it just had me realize it's exactly no different to jiu-jitsu. It's like you actually need somebody to roll with to learn. You don't actually learn it from just theorizing it. It's in relationship to the other that you're understanding what feels right, how the mechanics work. No different to a relationship, Admittedly, every single person plays a different jiu-jitsu game, so every person plays a different relationship dynamic. And as a result, I think what's also the skill is, how am I meeting this person, my partner, that's having me show up a certain way? So it's like you reflect things in me that no one else has. So I'm getting to learn that. It's not your fault. It's not you against me. It's like, I'm so appreciated that you're bringing this to me in this relationship, so I get to learn.
I think that's one of the hardest pills for someone to swallow, that it's our own triggers, our own reactivity. It's less to do with my partner and it's more to do with what my partner is showing me or activating inside of me. And like a lot of the work that we both do is around self-responsibility.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the work that we do inside of our own relationship, like one of the things that you said to me in the beginning was, I'm not going to save you, Charlotte. And like, I have two options there, right? I'm triggered. You're telling me you're not going to save me. I can protest and project and like really reject that and hate you for it.
Yeah.
Or I can choose to be responsible for the experience I'm having and call myself forward.
Yeah.
And it's really painful to do that at first.
It was days, I remember.
It was 3.
There was a lot of crying on the bathroom floor.
And you know what is wild? But I've had so many relationships where crying on the bathroom floor was normal and the standard. And that was me doing like grandstand behavior of, you better fix this. You've created this in me. You need to fix this. And not being responsible at all for my own emotional world. And so the difference I'm having now is that I know my emotions are my responsibility. Yes, you impact me. I'm a human. I'm sensitive. I'm a Cancer. But at the end of the day, you're not going to save me. And I have to save myself. And that's been one of the biggest growth pieces for me. And it's, if I can gift a woman anything, it's like the ability to be able to call herself forward.
Yeah, and you developed that skill, right? And they're like, this is so for a relationship, if we're going to offer something here, what do you feel like would be some skills that a relationship or a couple would be needing to be working on or have worked on?
So there's a couple that come straight to mind, and one is the communication aspect. Like often the reason we fall down in relationship is because we're just not on the same page as our partner. We can't speak the same language, or when we're trying to share what's coming up for us, it's riddled with like projection. So if I'm telling you you've done this, that's going to put you immediately on the defense. Whereas if I know how to use eye language and like communicate what's happening for me with responsibility, keeps you on my team.
Yes.
So I think communication is probably the first.
Yeah. And do you feel like in communication, so it's not just talking, it's making sure that each other understand each other? I think that's a real like defining part, because I think often at times couples go, well, we talk, but it's not like we understand each other. There can still be that misunderstanding. So like the effective communication.
Yeah, it has to land.
Yeah.
Like it really has to land. And like I know what we do and what we advocate couples do is actually have communication dates. And there's different levels of communication dates, right? Like there's the one to talk about the household things, the holidays, the kids, like that kind of those things. Then there's another one where you're actually communicating, okay, what's come up for me this week? Has there been something I've not given a voice? Have I had a trigger that I haven't fully expressed? Has something happened in my emotional world that I actually need to share with you? And so we're communicating, that's bringing in the emotional intimacy through communication.
Yeah, absolutely. What else?
So communication, and then the ability to repair. Holy shit, I know for myself, I was not modeled repair. I was modeled fighting and breakdown and stonewalling and silent treatment. I was not modeled repair, so I could not repair. I found repair so difficult. It's like if I was fighting with a partner, the little girl in me would be like, the audacity, like how dare you? I'd stay stubborn and stuck in my mad. Like I want to lean into love, but like there's a part of me that just doesn't know how to repair. So it's like repair is really important. What about you? Like your experience of repair? You're actually very good at repair, but was it always?
No, it was not this. And this is the thing. It's like, I feel like if I can learn repair, anyone can learn repair. But it's like, it's that fundamental basis of having compassion for each other, knowing that we love each other, knowing that when we are in a disagreement or we are in trigger, that we're not hurting each other. I think that's a big distinction that I've had to learn, is like, I don't want to damage the relationship. So I don't let things escalate to the point of damage and then having to have guilt and shame to repair with as also.
So when you say damage, do you mean if I started just like swearing at you or calling you names or started throwing things in your face? Like damage is where you can't really come back from that. We've said something that's probably crossed the line.
Yeah, it's when you start making, like, you make obviously agreements, and we'll get to the agreement part, but it's like the repair piece is like not letting it get too far gone so it causes damage.
I think it would be really helpful as well to give some like tangible ways to repair, because I think this can be such a pain point. So I know for me, feeling more anxious in relationship, if my partner tries to call space, I need space, that doesn't work for me or it hasn't worked in the past. So if we're needing to repair and kind of de-escalate something, it's like, how can we create space but actually maybe in the same room or still in the same house? We're not going to go anywhere. So we have those agreements set up for when we're creating repair. How can it feel as safe as possible for both nervous systems? Yeah.
Well, again, it comes to agreement. So I don't want to jump ahead. But it is, I think it's largely around making sure that you actually have a plan about repair.
Conflict plan.
Before the conflict happens. And if it happens and you guys don't catch it together, then it's okay. It's just next time. It's just being committed to like, this is what we're going to both say. So it could be that I'm feeling triggered. And then it's just like, well, if one person is triggered, then it's up to the other to sort of hold it together to create the co-regulation so we can come into a conversation where there's not blame, there's not disrespect, there's not damage being done, there's not grandstand behavior of like yelling or name calling or being nasty to try and win. It's like two humans that love each other, that are just feeling a bit dysregulated. Because if we can think about it like dysregulated rather than right or wrong, it means that we get to stay curious. If we can be curious with each other, then and have compassion with each other, it feels like we can just figure it out. It's like, babe, you know what? I love you.
This is all really great on paper. It's actually like, what do you say in real time though? You know, like
when you feel highly triggered.
When it's just a highly triggering space. It's like, because I know what it's like to be like, we have the plan. But then in the moment, it goes out the window. So I think the important part there is really, if you start to notice that you're going into trigger while it's still like a mild irritation or there's just something, and this could be the next skill we can talk about, it's really having the capacity to self-reveal. So I'm feeling that I'm starting to get triggered, and I'm going to let you in on that. I'm going to let you know. I'm noticing that I'm feeling triggered by the thing that was said or the thing that was done, and by acknowledging it quickly, it gives me a better chance to keep you on my team because I haven't dragged you down into the hole yet.
No, exactly.
And as we know, to co-regulate as a couple, one of us has to be self-regulated. One of us has to be regulated. So if I'm acknowledging I'm going into a trigger and I'm able to say that to you while you're not triggered, there's more of a chance that repair can happen quite quickly.
Yes, because to me it also exposes, it's partly, and I speak for men, if a man can learn to speak that, it means that shame doesn't have to be the protection part. Because if I don't speak up, I can go into a shame spiral that I didn't speak up, so now I'm going to defend myself or go on the attack or whatever it is when I feel triggered, that it's you, that it's this, that it's that, whatever it is, when really it's like, I don't feel good about this right now. I'm letting you know. And I think for men, it's like not waiting for the water to boil over out of the pot because the lid's on. It's like, how can we crack the lid, you know, or turn the heat down a little bit and just expose it. Hey, don't feel 100% right now.
And I think this is really, I speak to couples who say, we do self-reveal, we do like share our triggers, but it's more about sharing them before they become something big. You know, like we can talk about our triggers as they're like right there, can't avoid them or with hindsight, but it's really starting to have the capacity to tune into your own inner landscape. So it's like, I can self-reveal to you what's happening to me. We don't want to have unspoken words in our relationship. We know they create blocks in so many ways. And so self-revealing is about exposing the parts of yourself that maybe typically you put a lid on. I'll keep that to myself. I'm just going to deal with that, or it's not important, or I know how this conversation goes, or I'm not going to bring it up. It's like, we need to actually start putting those things on the table with responsibility.
Well, because to me, that's because I'm sure people go, oh, but I'm sovereign and I don't want to burden my partner with that. It's actually around just emotional intimacy. It's just letting you in so you can see those parts of me that maybe I don't want you to really see. I don't want to tell you that I'm triggered over something minute.
I don't want to tell you I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you that I feel jealous. It feels like that's an ugly part of me that I'm like don't want to expose. But it's like, oh, I speak it. And when I think actually the best part about self-revealing, to make self-revealing like a full, complete healing practice or gift you can give your partner, is when I self-reveal something like I'm jealous, when it's met with compassion and love, it softens. It's like actually a weight gets lifted off your shoulders. Like if I share with you my trigger and then you go into trigger and we're in trigger meeting trigger, we're then in the loop. But if I share something that I'm like, oh, it's a bit edgy to share, and you meet me with love, the whole thing lightens in my body. My nervous system has a glitch. It's like, I think something rewires. Yeah.
Well, in a way, it's a bid for connection. It's like, I'm connecting. I'm wanting you to know how I actually am inside. And, you know, and that's, to me, that's almost like a part of co-regulation as well.
Which is another skill, super important.
It is. So the relationship skills that we've covered so far.
Communication, repair, self-revealing, let's do co-regulation.
Yeah. And co-regulation, the way that I think about it now, understanding more around the nervous system, it's it's like that social engagement system. It's like, I am safe here. Yes. I am safe with you. There's not, and because we've talked about the self-revealing and the ability to repair without damage, it's like safety is actually possible. Trust is actually possible. So co-regulation can actually happen. And it's, I think the one part that I feel like sometimes is misunderstood, especially from men, is I need to be self-regulating myself so I am safe to connect with. So it's not all just you. You have to co-regulate with me and you have to fix it for me. It's I need to be regulated enough so we can co-regulate together.
Well, like we said before, like if you're coming into repair, it's really supportive if at least one person is regulated, so co-regulation can happen. And like you can co-regulate with a child, I can co-regulate with my clients, and essentially what it is, it's like me bringing your nervous system down by having my nervous system be down. And you don't even need words. Like sometimes words aren't it. It's like some touch or some pressure or some eye contact or breathing together or sitting close but maybe not touching. Or it is words, it's reassurance, but it's just one nervous system settling another. And that is a gift in relationship, except I do see a bit of a trap where one, or maybe both, they rely, I used to do this, would rely on co-regulation. It's like, I'm dysregulated, so you have to make me better. Whereas you don't, yes, it's a gift, but you don't want to rely on it at the expense of knowing how to self-regulate.
That's right.
It's a both.
It's you are self-regulating to build your flexibility in your nervous system yourself such that you can actually receive your partner's co-regulation as well without trying to take it. Because I don't think you can really, it's not something that you can really take. It's only something that you can receive from the other.
I think when you try and take, knowing that that's what I used to do, it puts resistance in the other.
It does.
I'm like, fix it for me. And it's just like, it doesn't feel good. But when it's like, I'm trying my best, I'm like settling, I'm not projecting, it's like, okay, cool. You're probably more likely to lean in.
And I think in a way it's like thinking outside of the scope sometimes, as far as like, well, how do we self-resource? How do we self-regulate as well as co-regulate? Is it time in nature? Is it a meditation practice? Is it a bath? Is it, like in a way it's kind of self-care, but I feel like we need to be doing it as a practice, as a regular thing, so we are building the muscle of self-regulation and that flexibility such that when something does come up, I'm like more attuned to it. I'm fitter in a way. I'm more flexible. So it's like I can sense that you are dysregulated. I don't say anything, but it's just soft gaze, slow breathing, closeness, whatever it might be around our partners. And knowing too that I need to be aware enough that when I think a lot of men work not at home, so they're out all day, they're in stress, they're in busyness, they're in work mode, and when they get home, it's like, how can they bring themselves home and not their work self home, so they can be in the household and being the person that people can regulate with.
This is honestly what I'm preaching, I feel like, every day. It's the daily commitment to your own nervous system. Yeah. And like you said, there's so many ways you can do that, but like a yoga practice, that time spent on my mat is my training ground for being in life, because if I am cultivating regulation in my system, when I run into something with my partner, I have access to it because it's actually become my default state. Maybe it's more of my habit to be sitting in that parasympathetic state. So it's really, and this is where I see a lot of resistance here, because when people are on a healing journey, they want a one and done process, or they want to find the partner that makes it all better. And it's in the not so sexy daily commitment to like chilling the fuck out. And like for me, it's yoga, it's breath work, it's meditation, and it's a non-negotiable. And I'm a different person for it.
So what I'm going to get to, because we haven't touched upon it yet as a point, which probably needed to go earlier on, is this agreements piece. Because to me, the part that I feel like ties this all together is when you make agreements with each other, it allows for love to occur. Not that love needs to be necessarily present. It's like, of course you want to feel a match and a connection with your partner, but it's like by creating agreements in your relationship that you both meet, it allows for all these things to occur. So it allows for trust, it allows for co-regulation, it kind of sets everything up powerfully.
It provides containment. Like when we have agreements, I don't have to think about, well, what is he doing or thinking? It's like we're in the bubble. And I think we can relax into that. So can you give some examples of like what agreements might be?
I think, to me, agreements is like when you're first starting out, it's obviously having like an RBDSM chat around like what's the meaning, what's the relationship, what's happening, what's your want and need, desire in this relationship. And that can be, you know, as in-depth or as easy as possible. But I think it's like, are we exclusive?
Is this monogamy?
Is this monogamy?
This open relating?
Yeah. You know, like, how do we feel about outside energy? What do we do around that? You know, like making requests of each other as far as like, you know, it could be a lot of things, right? That's very individual, but it's like, what do I need to feel safe in this relationship? And is that person willing to meet that?
So I think what's important then is individually knowing the standard of relationship you're here for.
Yep.
So you have to know what you value. You need to know your values. You need to know what you want. You need to be able to express that. And I so believe that you should be having this conversation date 1, date 2, maybe not date 1, right?
Yeah.
But like early. Yeah. It's like, let's not fuck around. Like, I know what I want. I know what I'm here for. What do you want? Let's see if it's a match. And if it's not, no big deal.
Well, there is that. And I still feel like I work exclusively with men, so to me it's like sometimes there's a piece in this as far as like getting to know each other that needs to happen before there's like a full commitment. So I wonder sometimes for some men is maybe the woman really knows she wants to have kids and really wants to have the white picket fence, and maybe the guy's not ready for that just yet. So can it be spoken to that it's like, can we develop a relationship and have this conversation again in 6 months or a year or whatever it might be, such that there's this part of me that sort of realizes that I feel like if we are too rigid, we kind of have this expectation that the perfect partner should turn up and just be already awesome.
And all in.
And it's like we need to be able to have the time and space to be committed. It's the same thing with the gym.
Definitely.
When I'm around my gyms, like everyone wants to have like freak awesome athletes just show up and be great. You make them. And I think it's the same in relationship as far as a skill. It's like there's some things that we agree upon and then we work together to build this relationship, build the skill set, build the connection, and then grow that from there. So I don't expect people just to find another person and it's like perfect fit.
But do you agree, or what do you think around, yes, we've just met, yes, let's take the pressure off, yes, we don't know yet, but if I know what I'm looking for, I'm still going to put that out there. And I'm not saying that you need to meet that need immediately, but I'm clear on what I'm after. So I'm naming it. And there's no pressure here, but it's just like, that's what I'm dating, to move in a direction, to move towards something.
Yeah, I'm not dating just for dating's sake. I'm dating.
And if you are dating for dating's sake, that's super cool. But it's like, I think we get to acknowledge that.
And I think it's about being honest with these agreements from the start. It's like, if you're just dating for the fun of it and you're with somebody that is dating to
find their
make a family,
baby daddy,
and all that sort of stuff, it's like, you know, like there's a part of me that doesn't feel integral for me to like continue that relationship if it's like that. And if you're sitting there going, I don't know, maybe, blah blah blah, like, do some work on that. Go and seek a men's group, a mentor, some therapy, whatever it is, so you can actually choose from a place of like not feeling pressured, because I think that's a really big block in relationship, is like feeling pressure, feeling have to, the shoulds, the expectation, all those things that the other person might not even be putting on us, but we have the experience of that, of just like feeling all those ill feelings that gets brought up in any relationship, whether it's family, friends, acquaintances, you know, your career or intimate relationship. You know,
Agreements are important.
Agreements are massive.
I think probably the next skill that comes to my mind, you just said the word intimate, would be the skills inside of intimacy. Right? And it kind of touches into what we were saying in the beginning, how honeymoon energy is all pretty effortless. Intimacy feels pretty effortless. But once that energy fades, we're left with the actual skill of intimacy. And it's not just sex, but it's the domain of just pleasure, playing, all of that. So
I really want to jump in on this because to me, I feel like this is where men really lack the skills, to be honest. It's like there's so much misinformation around how to be a good lover and how to be, what's actually needed to be a good, skillful lover.
Well, where are men and women getting their education?
Good question.
Porn, I'd say.
Maybe porn, maybe some books, like whatever it might be. It's like if I was going to learn something, I might need to immerse myself in some training to get better at it. It's not this thing where I'm just it's not an inherent skill that someone has. You can learn it. And I think often at times, I believe, men learn it from their partners that they're with. So they're trying to accrue, you know, intimate partners for experience so they can learn the skills and tools and whatnot. But I feel like that's one way to do it, but is it an integrity for you to really be doing that? Or could you actually do it in a way that's more ethical or better for yourself and your own energy, career, whatever, that you actually invest in the skill of intimacy, knowing that there's a whole bunch of resources out there? That's the part for me, because it's like, in a way, men are pretty similar in what works.
It's mechanical, right? Like it supports the evolution of our species, that
we're friction-based.
Friction-based gets the job done. And like women are a Rubik's Cube.
They can be.
And I say that with so much love, you know, knowing my own body and my own experience. If a man is coming to me doing what he's always done based on what he's learned from other women's bodies, it's like, that's not it. That's definitely not it. And I do, even though intimacy is a skill, I don't believe it's like a technique that you learn.
No.
I think the biggest way to be skillful with intimacy is to bring a level of presence. It's not about performance. It's not about technique. It's actually how present you can be with your partner. But I think there's so much performance inside of intimacy. Men want to get it right. Women want to get out of their heads. We've got goal-oriented intimacy. It's like there's so many cock blocks to having an actual good time inside of intimacy.
There is, especially like, I know I'll speak for men, is like, it's all it's the building up. It's almost like the anxiety and the pressure to be able to perform before it's even happened can get men largely in their heads around, you know, erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, all these things. They might have had a porn addiction and really struggle with excitement and pleasure and not being able to like basically like literally be intimate, be present with the other. They're kind of like, they're so over there with themselves,
yes,
in overwhelm or in fear.
Or in performance, which makes them not present with their partner.
Exactly, you know, and I feel like there's so much, I believe that there's so much more pleasure for men to experience if they would learn and take the skills that are out there.
It's so true for women also. Like, I know I speak to women all the time about this. It's just like they get to a point in relationship where I hear women say, I've just given up. I've given up. Maybe I don't need it. It's like, this is just the way it's going to be, because it's actually just subpar. And it's not just the men though. Like women also are bringing in their education and their like for me, it was porn. I learned about sex through porn, and I learned about sex through boys who learn about sex through porn.
Yep.
So it's just that friction-based, hard and fast, lots of intensity, high like visual stimulation, and over time, once honeymoon energy fades, I think that's a disservice to what's possible for a woman inside of pleasure, and it takes her so far away from her erotic universe.
Yeah, and I think for me, the reason why I speak to this with in the light that I do is the feedback that we're getting from women overall is dissatisfied. So you imagine if you're a man and someone asks you to do something that isn't good, and the last time you did it, it didn't go well, or it wasn't a good time, do you really want to do that again? And this is what's happening. Men are trying to engage with their partner. Their partner is a no. And not that they don't love their partner.
Yes.
They love their partner, but it's not that good a time.
I'd rather read a book. I'd rather keep working.
Yeah.
I'd rather just relax and have a bath.
Anything else but that, because what that was it worked one time, and now we're
It was mediocre. That's the thing. I think a lot of women who have been in long-term relationships have collected a lot of evidence that sex is okay. It's okay. But like, you don't want to do okay every night.
Yeah.
You know? And because the man, like, biologically, I think, like, what is it? There's more. Why will a man settle for mediocre night after night? And why will a woman not? Does the man not, like, yeah.
I think it's, in a way, I think there's biologically, it releases something. So a man's
Stress relief.
Yeah, it can be tied into other things. And this is something that I think men, it's largely out of their awareness until they start to do sort of more inner work, is they're realizing, like, what does love mean to me? What does sex actually get me? What am I reaching for? If in this orgasm, in this goal that I have to orgasm, what's it actually getting me? Because am I engaging with my partner to basically use their body to get off? Because I could do that alone. And energetically, is the woman feeling that? Feeling the pressure of just feeling a bit used and not actually feeling like, you know, she might be a concert violin that needs to be played exquisitely, you know, rather than just a drum that needs to be banged on, you know. So it's like, what's the outcome here? What are we really striving for? And is sex even the thing? You could be scratching that itch and you're scratching the wrong spot.
Well, that's, I think, just to answer that question, like, why would men settle for mediocre? I think it's because it still results in their orgasm.
Yes.
Right? And so a man potentially will continue to show up for mediocre and be okay with that because it does result in his orgasm. But like you said, it's not quite fully scratching the itch, because when a man engages with a woman and she's fully receptive and open and available, the experience that he gets to have is so different to the experience he has when she's just appeasing him.
Oh, yeah.
And if she's just appeasing him, the next night he's going to want to do it again because it hasn't fully scratched the itch. And he keeps chasing this thing that he can't quite reach. He thinks that's what he wants. But when you actually get a man and a woman come together in that way, that's like embodied union, that sacred union, it's like everyone kind of just relaxes. And it's like, maybe we won't have sex the next night because it's like I relieved that itch and I feel good.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that in your own experience?
Absolutely. It's just like the quality, chasing the quality, not chasing the quantity. It's like taking the neediness out, taking the have to, the should, the expectation, the wanting to have that release. It's like, I can get that elsewhere. It doesn't have to be intimacy or to orgasm that leads me to that feeling of bliss or a feeling of purpose or being in alignment with my life. It's like our relationship is good whether we're having it regularly or not. Like, because there's so much connection already. It's like I'm having intimacy because, I mean, I know for me, it's play. It's creativity. So if I have the value of intimacy being play, fun, creative, and pleasurable, it's never going to look the same. it's always going to feel different. It doesn't have to go anywhere because we make the rules up as we go. We can play it any way. It's not the same thing every time, you know? So it's like, I think that in itself is that skill. So am I looking to learn new things all the time? Yes. Am I open to creativity? Am I open to different experiences? Yes. And then that creates, and to me, it's like men leading that and leading intimacy and taking our partners on some ethereal journey.
I think a lot of women are left really desiring that, or maybe not even knowing that they are, but being led by the masculine into the cosmos.
Yeah.
Like, lead me somewhere where I don't even know my name. You know, like that's an experience I think a lot of women are wanting, and it feels elusive.
Well, definitely. And I think it comes down to, like, you know, is the man in his primal energy and also in his upper energy? So it's like, is the base and the crown both working together to create something amazing? You know, am I being embodied? Am I being present enough with myself and with my partner to create that state? Or am I already off thinking about what's next while
I
we're
think
together?
that's a big thing for women as well. It's like, because we can talk a lot about how the man needs to bring this and learn this and do this, but a man can bring all of that, and he can definitely, like, throw a woman into her pleasure and into her body, a skillful man, and a woman has her part to play here. You know, it's like, what's my capacity for presence? Am I actually in my head thinking of the things to do and the meals to make and the to-do list? You know, like, I need to be cultivating my own presence. And like, I really advocate a self-pleasure practice for women, because I desire to be able to tune into my erotic world so that I can bring it to you. You're not always trying to find it in me. It's like, I can bring that to you, and that gets to be playful as well. So there's responsibility on both to be cultivating presence and eros. And then when two people are doing that and they bring it together, there's your play, there's your creativity, there's your, for me, it's like partnered meditation. It's a meditative process that we're in together, and yeah,
more 3-hour sex days.
We really advocate for 3-hour sex days. And
Minimum.
I remember when I had lots of blocks around intimacy, and I was doing some mentoring, and it was suggested like a 3-hour sex date, and I was horrified. I was horrified at the thought of having to perform for 3 hours, because that's what sex was for me at the time. And now it's like 3 hours, it's barely enough.
Yeah.
It's barely enough. But also, I don't want to create a limiting belief in someone that they need 3 hours to have a beautiful, intimate moment, right? We teach couples to have gourmet quality time over like that junk food time together. You can have gourmet, if you have 30 minutes, you can have a good time together. But if you can book in a 3-hour sex date,
do that.
Put it in the calendar.
Yeah. So what do we got?
We've got communication as a skill, repair, self-regulation, co-regulation, self-revealing, setting up agreements, and intimacy. And I think that really, if
one more, just one more, and that is having sovereignty in the relationship. So the you, the me, the us in the relationship, I feel like is really important.
I think that really comes down to like attachment style work, and like really earning that solid, secure attachment. So I can be a sovereign individual, that I'm not so enmeshed with you that I lose myself, or if you wobble, I wobble. I think,
I wanted to touch on it because I feel like it is a skill. So maybe that's another episode.
Attachment for sure. It's a big conversation. But I think for any couple listening to this, it sounds like we've just given you a big list, but really it's, you hyper focus in on these areas. It's not like, the work's not hard. It actually gets to be quite playful. And it's always a practice, and you're not always going to get it right. You're going to fall down. But when both of you are willing to lean in, then you get to create something different.
Yeah, and I'd love to know if there's any that you have in your own in your relationship, feeling like there's skills to be had. If there's anything that you feel like wasn't touched upon, I'd love to know. I'd love to know what you guys think around what relationship needs.
And if you're interested in diving into this stuff and creating a relationship that is full of passion, play, presence, clarity, all the things, this is what we teach. This is what we model. So you can definitely reach out and we can have a conversation around what some deeper work can look like, because you are going to be in relationship for the rest of your life. Even if this current relationship doesn't go the distance, you're in relationship with yourself. So make it awesome.
And if you don't already, jump on Instagram, follow us at Embodied Union.
That's us.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Give me a kiss. Love you.
Thank you, Critter.